Yo, what's going on guys? SpaceKong here. So in this video I'm going to be discussing the Morrowind champion points, and yes, I can do this. Although when people join the Morrowind closed beta, they sign a disclosure agreement, so they're not allowed to talk about the Morrowind content. However, you are allowed to show content that's not showing off anything to do with Morrowind or the Warden, so the champion points is fine. And I have checked this out on the ESO forums as well, so yeah, and they're totally fine with it. So here we go anyway, champion points. So as you've noticed straight away, there is no cost reduction champion point skills. Instead, we have Siphoner and Sprinter. Yay! Most useless ones yet. So when you deal damage with a light or heavy attack, you reduce your opponent's magicka, health and stamina recovery by however many percent for 3 seconds. How useless is that? If you're going against a tank, I can kind of get it, but say if you're going PvP or something, then it's really not going to make a difference because you're not going to have a lot of regen for a DPS. And they've also been very harsh on the diminishing returns with this as well, so a lot of skills have been buffed and debuffed, but the soft caps are going to be a lot harder now, so it's not worth putting more than 50 CP champion points into any skill line because you'll be losing out a lot, and I'll be testing this later on to show you. So for the Sprinter, it's basically reduced the cost of sprint. So we've put 10 points in, and okay, you can see how much it gives you there, but the more you put in, the less you get, which is fine. But when you get to a certain point, about 40 to 50 champion points, you really don't get much back. So let's test it now then. So even between 40 and 50, you really only got like, what, is that 2%? No, 4%? That's it. And as you keep going, you get less and less every time. So once you get past 50 champion points, you might as well put them in it. And between 90 champion points and 100 champion points, it's 0.4%. That's 10 champion points for 0.4%. It's really not worth it. So you might as well put your points in something else. Not that you would ever use Siphoner or Sprinter anyway. But they have changed the maximum that you can go up, so it's not too bad. So Siphoner's maximum goes up to 15%, and then Sprinter goes up to 35%. And they've done this for quite a few skills. So we still have our Mooncalf, Tenacity, Arcanist, and Healthy. And they're exactly the same as they were before. They haven't been touched. They may have had a slight buff or debuff, but nothing drastic. But yeah, the diminishing returns are still pretty bad. Okay, so they got up to 15% in this patch. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure they went up to 20% before, but now they're on 15%. Okay, so they've had a debuff. We still have Befoul, Tumbling, Shade, and Shadow Ward, as we had in the previous patch. However, they have changed the maximum around a bit. And they have made it very harsh for some of them. So some go to 15, some go to 20, 25, 30, 35. Actually, I don't think any go to 30, but yeah, it's either 25 or 35. Okay, so for the Mage skill tree, we still have all the same. The Blessed only goes up to 15%, and the last 10 points are ridiculous. Like you're not going to want to get anything past 50 again on these. So you're going to want to spread out your champion points. That's essentially what they're trying to make you do. So rather than having unlimited supply of magicka or stamina, you know, so you don't run out of resource, what they're trying to do is trying to spread it out. So if you want to have maximum regen, then you're going to have to spend a lot of champion points, which isn't worth it in the end, unless you really, really want it. So spell erosion for the spell penetration, that's exactly the same. So what they're trying to do is balance everyone out, but you're not going to have any sustain. Like with that, and like the recovery points only go up to 15% as opposed to 20 now, and they've just completely destroyed the reduced cost champion point skill line. So yeah, essentially you're just going to have no sustain whatsoever. the way that PvP is going is there's not going to be any 1vx in, or if there is, it's going to be through skill and not through just having a ridiculous build, which is kind of a good thing, so that it's more skill based. However, for PvE, I can see people's DPS drastically dropping now because, okay, we've got physical weapon expert here. I think they've changed this around because we've got master arms as well. I'm not sure these used to be here before. But yeah, so what they're trying to do is in PvE, you're not going to be running 2 DPS sets now because you have no sustain, no regen. You'll burn through the first few mobs and have absolutely nothing. So it's going to be kind of a little bit like PvP, where you have one set for your damage and then another set for your sustain. At least that's how I see it going anyway, like this. I haven't tested it yet, and I don't know if I'm allowed to speak about it. I don't know if I'm allowed to tell you about it, because it kind of counts as Morrowind content. I'm not sure. But yeah, as far as sustain goes, everyone's kind of screwed, except for, say, sorcerers. There's a way that they can sustain and not run out still. But then that's only because they haven't been touched at all in the patch, except for having a 0.2% on their animation time for Dark Deal, which is nothing. Okay, so for these champion points, exactly the same. They really haven't changed much, except for the cost. So, like I've said before, some only go to 15%, some go to 35%. But I don't quite understand how this is going to be balanced, in a sense that, okay, some of the skills, yeah, they go up to a higher percent, some don't, and they cost a lot of champion points, like a ridiculous amount. So I don't see anyone wanting to go that high anyway, because it's just a waste. However, I think the warrior skill line is definitely going to be the best. So look at this ironclad. Look, I'm just going through the single points. It's not even going up by a full %. It's not even going up by 1/10% when you get to the last lot. So yeah, you're just literally wasting. There's no point. When I do PvP from now on, I'm probably gonna do the non-champion point campaigns, because yeah, it's gonna be crap with the champion point ones. It's not gonna make much difference. Okay, so the physical and spell resistance champion points are going to be exactly the same. Yeah, these are going to be exactly the same, except for Bastion. I think that only goes up to 15% now. Let's see. Oh no, it does go up to 20%. No, 25%. Okay, that's still good. I thought it had a nerf, but I was wrong. Yeah, it still goes up to 25%. That's still good. I'm glad that they haven't changed that one, because that was a very, very good one for Max Orcs, and I play Max Orc a lot of times. So that's kind of just me having a selfish opinion, really. Oh my god, so check this out. The last few points on the quick recovery. Every time you put a point, it doesn't even go up by a full %. And that is literally all for the champion points. Although they have raised the maximum champion points to 630 as opposed to 600, but it doesn't matter really now, because you can have as many champion points as you want. You know, they can keep raising it by 30 every time, but it's not going to make much of a difference at this time, because like I said before, the diminishing returns are going to be a lot harsher. You're not going to get any resource management unless you wear set armors for resource management, which sucks, because dungeons are going to be a lot slower. DPS is going to drop drastically unless you're going to just go through it with no resource. If you're just going to go for a burn phase, then that should be fine. But the way I see it is, people are going to be carrying different sets of armor in a dungeon now. So they're going to wear, for mobs, they're going to have more sustain. And then for bosses, depending on if it's a normal or a vet dungeon, if it's on a normal dungeon, then you can just burn through the boss without losing, you know, you can still have resources by the time you finished it. Whereas if it's going to be a long boss battle, then it's going to take a long time, because you're going to be using a set where you have resource management and a set for DPS. As far as tanks go, I could see them not struggling too much. resource-wise, because tanks are usually self-sustaining anyway. It's going to be a bit harder for them, but I don't think they're going to be struggling too much. Healers, I don't think they're going to be doing too bad either, because a lot of the champion points for healing are exactly the same. However, if you're a Templar healer, it's going to be a different story, because they've obviously taken out a lot for the Templar, which I'm not exactly happy about, but it's going to happen anyway, so there's not much we can really do about that. So I can understand why ZeniMax have done this, to try and balance it out a bit. Well, I say balance, we'll take that with a pinch of salt. But personally, in my own opinion, now this is just my opinion, you know, it doesn't mean I'm right, doesn't mean I'm wrong, but I think this is the wrong way to go about it. It's kind of going to break the game. A lot of people I know have already left the game or considering leaving the game if the patch notes don't change. Personally, I'm going to play the game whatever happens, because it's my favourite game. You know, they can destroy it and stuff, and I'll just, you know, even if I don't do the content where it's PvP or PvE dungeons and stuff, I'll still just be happy doing the quests, because, you know, I enjoy every part of the game. However, I wouldn't want this to go through. I wouldn't want it to happen, especially a lot of the debuffs that have been going on, not just for the champion points, but for classes as well. How they gave, they pretty much just stripped the Templar of anything good, which, you know, obviously Templars are, yeah, it's a favourite for a lot of people, especially for a healing class. I can understand why they've nerfed it, but it doesn't mean it's going to make the game, it's going to make healing a lot harder, which, you know, healing's kind of a bit too easy as it is at the moment, in my opinion, that is. But I can't see why it's happening like that. As for the passives, like being a DPS and putting the champion points into the passive, which means if you have over 29k stamina, then the passive's basically going to give you a debuff as opposed to a buff. At that point, I just wouldn't put the point into the passive skill, because you're going to be, why would you spend a point to lose out of it? Do you know what I mean? I don't understand that. I really do hope they change that, because it's just going to be a waste of a slot for the passive buffs. So, but yeah, anyway, I hate all that shit anyway, so, but anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and found it useful. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you'd like to see more videos like this in the future, please leave a like and subscribe, and as always guys, have yourselves a great day. Peace!